All right, I think it's good enough time now to kick off the webinar. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in today. You're joining in for the webinar series covering fundamentals of cybersecurity. You guys may remember me from the last series. My name is Ryan Chanowski, and I work for FirstLight Technologies. We're a value-added reseller that offers IT solutions and support to businesses and enterprises all around the country and the world, whether it's data storage, security, really anything data center or even in the cloud, we're your one-stop shop for solutions and services. We encourage you to send in your questions throughout this webinar, whether it's through the Q&A or even the chat. We'll answer those during the webinar, and also we'll leave some time at the end to answer some questions. I'd like to kick off this webinar by introducing you to your presenter, Frank Welder. Frank is an expert in the data security field, and I think you'll find him quite knowledgeable and very entertaining. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Frank.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. How y'all doing today? Hey, last time, hold on. Let's do a little fun here. You cannot start because the host has stopped it. Okay, no video for me today. Thanks, host. Yeah. So hey, last time we came at you from Tech Data Cyber Range in beautiful, sunny, wonderful Phoenix, Arizona. This month, you're finding yours truly at his RV, right? Because I'm a full-time RVer. At my RV, parked on a mountain in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Raccoon Mountain, for those of you that know the area. Just having a ball, living the dream here, shall we say. And this is going to be, this webinar is a continuation of last month, right? Last month, we'll do a little review of what we talked about last month. And I've got I think I've got some pretty good examples of using technology to help us all get better, faster, stronger in the cybersecurity range area. As Ryan said, right, he is going to be monitoring more than I am the chat and the Q&A session associated with this. So if you have questions during our little discussion today, feel free to go ahead and pop them right into either the chat or the QA section there. QA would be better for if you do have a question, though, just to make sure we can keep track of it. It'll go along with the recording and everything else that's part of it as well, right? So let's just, so with that, we'll just continue on. So last time I started with these two numbers on the screen. And I loved having these two numbers because it ties into another article I just read last week. And so this is the average blood pressure of a CISO or a director of security within inside an organization. And because this person's got a lot of responsibility, a lot of stuff, and a lot of folks gunning for you know, data or getting access or all these other wonderful things. The article I read, I'll try to get this to Ryan so we can include it as part of this thing, is it related that the folks that are doing cyber inside your organization, especially the folks that are doing responding to attacks and responding to in doing the remediation, they are discovering symptoms of PTSD because of the workload and the impact and all that other stuff within inside the organization. So the report was kind of like, you know, short-circuiting or the short-lived lives of the cyber warfare warrior. And as somebody who used to be a part of U.S. Army Cyber Command, and my last position with inside the Army was actually was an instructor at U.S. Army Cyber Command in Fort Gordon, Georgia. I'm not sure if I would hit it to the level of PTSD, but you know what? It was an interesting report as we read it, right? I think it just really goes to point out again and again and again, the job for cybersecurity is a difficult job, right? So let's make sure we have the basics and the tools to make sure that it's not harder than it has to be associated with it. And I really do believe, right, having some of the right tools can make your job just a little bit easier when it comes to the cyber aspect of this job. Now, last month we talked about, I'm just going to skip through a couple of these. I think I want to go to slide 20 is where I want to get to, right? No, I want to do this one. Right. I hate it when IBM does that to me or PowerPoint does that to me. I'll swap the presenter. Right, there it is. Right. right now we're looking at the whole unified security for a multi-cloud world, right? Threat intelligence and endpoints and hybrids and identity access and mobile security. All these other things tie into these things that we have to do with inside our cyber world. And we were talking earlier last month about, you know what, strategy and risk. Yep, that's something that we have to be concerned about. Let me see if I can get my my laser pointer working here. Right, strategy and risk is something we always have to be worried about, and that's where the FirstLight really comes into, right? Help you understand the risk assessment, advisory services, and things like that, right? One of the things we hit upon yesterday, gosh, I'm going to keep saying that all the webinar, right? If Frank says yesterday, think last month, right? Is when we start talking about the basics of cybersecurity, one of the things we really wanted to be able to focus on is this thing called Qradar. Our job, right, we really wanted to make sure we had a tool set that could see everything, all the logs, all the event logs and the flows, and do the correlation, right, and sucking up information within inside your network about all that stuff that's going on, and give you visibility, that single pane of glass that says, hey, I think there's a problem over here because it's not supposed to work that way, and this is most likely what's going on. What we're going to cover today is a little bit of Qradar in the area of the stopping advanced threats, like finding the advanced threats, focusing on this thing called user behavior analytics, and then how we do some threat hunting associated with that as well. We're going to talk a little bit about I2, but Ryan, this is one of those things where, gosh, we might have to add a separate webinar on just for I2 and how we can use I2 as part of our master threat hunting. But we are going to talk about and have a demo for Curator Advisor for Watson as well, and that's the artificial intelligence piece. So I always want to, when we start taking a look at getting the basics covered, right? If you've got Qradar in place already, the next logical step is always being able to include this thing called user behavior analytics associated with it, right? We want to find out what's going on, and we'll talk a little about that, and then how we investigate with Qradar. So I'm going to go forward on to slide 20, because this is the same presentation as last month, but oh, look at that, I said it right, last month. Right, but now we're going to talk about just some different capabilities in it, right? So we ended last week with, to talk about Qradar SIM. And hey, before I got on this call this afternoon, I was listening to a conference call with Gartner, and for the 11th year in a row, IBM's Qradar is the #1 SIM for advanced threat defense, right? So it was 10 years, now it's 11 years that it's been the #1 recognized by Gartner and the analyst groups for helping to detect and stop threats for our customers. But there are some things we want to add here. So Ryan, like I said, I think we're going to have to add on some from I2 for master threat hunting. And this is where we see a lot of defense contractors, financial and healthcare organizations have used this product from IBM for cyber threat hunting, right? So it'll take all these wonderful things that we'll find inside of Qradar and Watson, and then being able to attach it with very large data sets for maybe from a social aspect, or maybe they did some mining inside of the dark web and different things like that. And what this really does, and this is where law enforcement has really used cyber threat hunting or a fraud analysis piece, it helps identify bad actors and hidden connections between them that we didn't really know about, right? This is how we analyze, I've got a bank account over here that's tied to a shell corporation over here that's doing this. All that's unstructured data that you put in here and you start drawing correlations with. All right, so that's why we'll probably just add that as the 4th or the 5th webinar. I'm not even sure what we're up to yet, Ryan, but we got a lot of them that we can talk to, right? And that's why I just want to highlight this as one of the tools that IBM has, or the premier tool IBM has for cyber threat hunting. But today we're going to talk about these two things, and this was part of our discussion, right? We're going to speed up our SOC, our Security Operations Center, with a little AI, right? Well, a little AI on the Curator Advisor side, but a lot of machine learning over here. And I don't care what any of those guys tell you about this. User behavior analytics is all about machine learning and rules and being able to define things associated with that. And the whole thing with user behavior analytics, this is all about insider threats. And we're going to talk about why insider threats are going to be so important that you have to look out for these. because this is where it's coming from associated with that, right? So this is all about continuously learns behaviors to predict malicious users. And we're going to talk about that term, malicious users. Generate detailed risk scores for individual users and watch lists and things like that. And this is one of those things that has been downloaded a whole bunch. So it's at no additional charge. Notice I didn't say free, right? Because in order for you to get the most out of this, you want events and flows with inside your organization, right? And those cost money, right? So now if you've got those in place, yep, let's use UVA on top of that to get even more stuff out of that piece, right? And then the other thing we're going to talk about then is how we use Curator Advisor with Watson as part of this as well. And this is all about how we can help your SOC teams, those folks that remember that that article I was talking about, the SOC teams are like PTSD with these things, right? How can we help them, give them a tool that helps find the bad guys or find the root cause faster? Right? There's some studies that have been done that says, hey, you know what? An investigation into a cyber event could take 4 or 5 hours, maybe a day or two, with a lot of stress to figure out, has something really happened, or is this just a portion of my environment that I just didn't see, right? So this is all about gaining insights, because Watson goes out there and we're talking about reading what Watson reads and stuff like that. We'll get into that as part of our discussion here today, right? So let's continue on here. Let's talk about first UVA, right? This is all about insider threats, right? So here's the facts, right? Insiders are responsible for more than 50% of data breaches. So imagine if you had to build a security system that had to take into account half of your threats were your own employees, right? Oh boy, right? 74% named user intervention, clicking on a link, opening an attachment as the top ways that threats enter, right? Think about that one, right? That's malware, that's ransomware pieces right there. I clicked on that's the employee compensation document. I should get that. And all of a sudden they are infected with malware from all over the place. 90% of organizations feel vulnerable to insider threat pieces, right? So, hey, it's happening, right? And so the insider threat folks are coming at it. 56 of them are just regular employees, right? Of those 56, right, 55% of them have privileged IT user accounts or an admins. How many times have you heard this one? I'm the super user who's access into the databases that got all that GDPR data. And if that user takes something out of there, guess what? You lose visibility into it because of that, right? How do we track that type of insider threat? And the other one is contractors, temporary workers and employees and things like that, right? Right? Those are the folks coming at you, right? So, and then there's some motivations associated with that. Accidental, unintentional insider, right? They got fished, right? We see that one quite a bit. And versus malicious deliberate user. We see this more not on the commercial side, on defense industry side, military side. We see a malicious deliberate users associated with that. And then what they're going after is privileged account and sensitive PII GDPR data, and then the cost, $100,000 to $500,000 USD for a successful insider attack. Okay, so this is why we really want to pay attention to what our users are doing. They account for half of our problems, half of our security incidents inside our organization, and it's all bad from there, right? So here's some types of insider threats we take a look at. There's that lone wolf, that guy that was just absolutely TO'd about something or another, and they're going to go get it, right? Collaborator, right? This is working with maybe a state-sponsored or organized crime type folks. The goof. Now, this is the one that we see quite a bit, right? They're just acting out of ignorance, right? They think because they can get around a security control, they may have access. This is where we see a lot of the insider threats are caused by goofs, right? It's just, I didn't know. I clicked on that and I got that. Well, they come back and say, well, you shouldn't have let me click on it, right? We're like, and you shouldn't click on it, right? So we want to make sure we can keep part of that one. And then there's the pawn, right? Unaware that they've been compromised, the victim of a phishing attack or malware. This is the growing one that we see right now, right? We want to make sure that we can figure out that, is that somebody being malicious, or is that somebody who just got pawned, right? Or got phished and now they're a pawn associated with it, right? So this, again, why we want to be able to do this. So from a perpetrator activity, right? their first goal is, how do I gain access to it, right? And these are the different techniques that they're going to use associated with it. Malicious human action, control bypass, social engineering, evasion techniques, I guess malware associated with this, or clicking on something that they shouldn't have, or escalation of privileges. I'm a super admin, so I can do that type of thing, right? So once they gain access, it's going to be achieving access, right? User says, hey, I'm a real authenticated user, right? I belong here, right? Or a user marked accessed an asset. And we see this one quite a bit, especially in healthcare and finance, right? So there's databases or files that are marked that says, hey, you can only access this file, patients.xls, from a machine on this network, right? So I can get somebody to be able to come in and mark that as authorized access. Ooh, that's a big deal associated with that, right? And then abusing it, right? I got data voyeurism, skimming, obfuscation associated with that. So this is right. So we want to make sure that we can, invisible perpetrator and preceding actions, we can see that, right? We really want to understand, this is the high time right here, right? How can we make sure that we've got users and time and asset and location, we can easily extract that information and figure out, is this a problem associated with that, and what should we do about that as it comes into that environment? So this is just a way to be able to say, hey, you know what, if I'm going to use security analytics, user behavior analytics associated with this, I've got a couple of things I'm going to do, right? First, I'm going to instrument, right? This is important, right? Instrument. This is events, right? Frank Welder logged in, Frank Welder logged out. Frank Welder failed his login 7 times and then correctly logged in the 8th time, right? I want to know that type of stuff associated with that, right? So when I say instrument, then classify that user activity on a successful login or escalation of privileges, I want to know that kind of stuff inside my environment. And then step 2, I want to be able to predict and understand the normal. This is behavior monitoring, right? And this is where your activities come up, and you give these activities scores, and you say, yeah, this user has a typical score of 50, right? And then all of a sudden their score goes to 550. Well, what happened, right? And we can talk about those, what happened. Like, they came in from a different location. They came in via a different access metaphor, right? They started accessing stuff they'd never accessed before, right? That's going to raise your score. And this is all about machine learning at this point, right? I'm going to take all those events and logs and access and network information, and I'm going to do something with it. And then I'm going to put it into this comparison. I'm going to compare that actual user activity against what's normal for that user. And from that, being able to say, yeah, I need to watch this person. Have they been compromised? Was this a malware type thing, right? Take a look at this thing, right? This falls back into all the things that Qradar talks about, being able to help you identify, identify and detect real-time threats as they're happening in motion, right? So now that we're here, right, let's see, page down, I'm going to hit this one. Right, under UBA, I really want to make sure that I can detect and predict that normal activity, machine learning, right? And then I want to apply some advanced analytics to it, and then have historical activities associated with it. Then I also want to be able to I want to enrich these existing alerts and offenses with the user activity. So here's where we start having a lot of fun. And you've heard me say this several times. Events are great. Flows are where it's at. And here's where being able to have Curator Network Insights or QFlow is so important. So at that level, and I don't have a slide for this, so just visualize with me, right? If I think about my OSI layer, my stack associated, I got application and user at the top at layer 7, and I got physical access at layer 1 associated with that. If I'm using something like Curator Network Insights or QFlow, JFlow, or whatever Cisco's is associated with that, right? I want to be able to capture all 7 layers of that model. So I'll capture how they're accessing, what their IP address is, what their MAC layer address is, and I'll also capture what application they're using and username that they're accessing this with, right? So now if I take those events and I take the log information and then I start taking that activity insights, I can really start drilling down into user activities and what's happening as part of my operations workflow, right? Because now, once I get that, I can really leverage the power of Qradar as part of that thing, because I'm going to pull all that information in, and I'm going to zero in on, hey, this user, Frank Welder, is accessing a data set that he's never accessed before, and now is dumping 40 terabytes of data out of it. Well, that's, UVA says that's a problem. We should stop them, right? Or we should notify somebody about that. All right, so this is just a couple of use cases. I'll let you read that one when you get that, because I do want to kind of get into the components of UVA before we drop into a demo and trying to show off what this thing looks like. All right, so first and foremost, right, we've got log and data sources, right? Microsoft Active Directory, LDAP, network, endpoint activity. I'm gathering all that stuff and I'm putting it into these categories. And right now, UVA has got 12 different categories, from access authentication, accounts and privileges, browsing behavior, exfiltration, geography, network traffic, reconnaissance. So these are the 12 different activities that it puts those sources into. And then it machine learns at user activity deviation, variation, similarity, right? And this is tunable machine learning algorithms about what's going on, right? This is normal, this is not normal, and then outputting that to an analyst, right? So outputting it to something that says, hey, here's this dashboard with user role, type, view, watch list, and all the reference set information associated with it. So these are the components that make up UVA. And now, did I make sure I mentioned it? UVA is at no additional cost, but you're going to want to have great data sources down here. So you want to make sure you got events and flows associated with that to make that thing happen. All right, so here we go. Oh, demo screenshots. So I'm going to escape out of this, move that down. I'm going to take and bring this over here. And so this is my Qradar demo environment that I've got running on. And as you can tell, right, I've got some stuff going on. I've got some communications happening within that. I've got log sources happening and things like that. But we were talking about user analytics. So here I'm going to go to my user analytics tab with inside Qradar. So remember, I've got all this activity coming in on the log activity side, right? So this stuff is happening in real time. And in this case, I've got about a 3 terabyte log file of stuff that I sucked up in the past, and I'm just feeding it back in from both the log side and the network activity side, which is now then being populated on the user behavior activity side, right? So right now it says I'm monitoring 367 users. Right now, I've got one high-risk user, and it's very easy to tell who that high-risk user is. It's Jonah Black right now. Something is going on with Jonah Black, because that's a pretty high score, and it's on the rise, shall we say, right? It says, this is the interesting point here, is it's discovered 317 users, or 86% of those users were discovered from events. Right, so I imported 50 of them from the user directory, but I found another 280 number right from inside of the events that were being created. Right, so this is just my dashboard. But of the monitored users that I'm looking at, right, so the 367 users I'm taking a look at, I can tell Jonah Black is going to have some issue. That's a support engineer from Savannah in this case, right? And I can also see some recent offenses that were attributed to them and some different scores and things like that. But this is where I want to take a look and say, oh, Jonah Black is also a user with a dormant account. So right there, SOC analyst, the bells should be ringing off, right? We're like, no, this is something bad going on over here, right? This is a dormant account. So now we're just going to click into Jonah. And we're going to start just doing some drilling down into what has been happening with Jonah. So now it'll list that his overall risk score is on the rise, right? Give you some great information associated with that. But dormant, never used, well, that's never good to be able to have associated with that. It also then, remember this takes all of the information that Qradar already has, and it presents it right back out to us and say, hey, this user, Jonah Black, either it's user ID or it's a PC asset that it uses to connect, has been involved in these recent offenses as well. And these are some pretty high magnitude offenses as well, right? So in this offense, the user crossed a risk threshold, so we might want to investigate that. And in this one, multiple login failures for the same user preceded by multiple login failures followed by success from the same username containing a failed password, right? So I'm like, oh, somebody brute force cracked into this guy, right, in order to get access to this person's account. Right, so very quickly we're able to see, okay, based upon the events and the flows that are running in the system right now, I'm going to want to make sure we can take care of that, right? And then I can also take over and view it in a timeline as well. All right, so if I want to see it in a timeline of when things happen, this is the big one, right? So now we get dormant account, brute force login based upon the user ID, as well as the user geography changed. Hold it, what do you mean the user geography changed, right? So this means this user was coming in from a different geography than it normally had been coming in at, right? So we're like, oh no, they're coming in from a different location. So now this talks about all the different locations the user's been at. Let's see, this one is, who is that? That's South Africa, that's France, that's China, right? So we've got some user geography changes. So that means, yeah, we're probably catching folks all over the different parts of the world trying to come in and get access to this environment, right? So very quickly we can see this is going to be an issue associated with this, right? So now that it's got my risk associated with this, it says that this actually is involved in 19 different use cases and different events associated with this, right? So we know that this is going to be a problem. So what we're going to have to do is, as part of our remediation, we're probably going to delete Jonah Black's ID, right, or disable her login, right, because it was dormant. It was never disabled associated with that. We might want to put some firewall rules in that talk about, hey, you know what? This user's coming in from geographies that we've never been, we don't do business in, right? So it really just starts showing off that when I can see all of this stuff in my environment and I apply it to threat management or user behavior analytics, remember 50% of our users, 50% of our incidents are coming from internal to our users, right? Now, I suspect this is actually ransomware or escalation privileges or take over an account associated with that. And I can get different information associated with it as well. So I clicked on that offense that was presented there, and hopefully it won't take too long to bring this into a view for us, where I can start doing even more drill down on that particular offense that was created. Because I think that'll even help us understand even more things. So I can actually, so now this is the offense, the multiple login failure, same user, login failures followed by success associated with that. So now I've got all the events that made up that offense, and now I can investigate them with Qradar for Watson as well. So I can find out, have they logged in or attempted to log in from any malicious IP addresses? Are they using any known triggers to be able to create these offenses, right? I'm not going to click that button now because I'm going to save that for after we have our conversation or discussion about Curator Advisor for Watson as well, right? But I hope that helps us understand that I can now use an add-on tool for Curator, an add-on tool, no additional cost, but I want great sources associated with it, that now helps me visualize what my users are doing inside of that environment. All right, so I'm going to just go back to the dashboard associated with that. And now we can see, and we can, we now have the capability to investigate others associated with that, right? But I think the whole goal here is I want to be able to, if I've got this great tool set that gives me this awesome visibility, now let's apply some analytics to this visibility and help find out where the threats are coming from internal to my organization. And I think that's the whole goal I wanted to be able to make when we start talking about user behavior analytics inside of the Qradar environment. So with that, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to check the chat over here and the Q&A. All right, nobody had any questions associated with that. Okay, all right, that's okay, that's okay. Might be saving them up for the end. All right, now I want to transition into, now we don't, and when you get the presentation, I actually have screenshotted all the stuff we just talked about for UVA. So it's in the presentation as well, right? But now I want to talk a little bit about Curator Advisor for Watson as well, right? There we go. Right? There we go. Sorry. So now when we start talking about Curator Advisor for Watson, right? This is going to be all about artificial intelligence. The last one was machine learning, absolutely machine learning. If anybody tells you, oh, I'm gathering all this stuff and doing this stuff and that's AI, that is not AI. Call BS, call me, and I'll call it BS on them, right? All this events and correlation and analytics associated with that, that's machine learning. And you know what? And it is good machine learning. Now we want to transition into something that is absolutely artificial intelligence and how that's used, and we can use it in conjunction and correlation with UBI as well, right? So Curator Advisor for Watson is AI for the frontline security analyst. This is all about reducing this thing. Oh, let me put this back in presentation mode. Sorry about that, folks. And then I have to do the thing because I don't know how to do it properly, right? And then we're gonna turn on laser pointer, because gosh, I love the laser pointer. So this is all about being able to help our security analysts or your security analysts drive consistent investigations, right? So it's going to look the same way all the time and make quicker and more decisive incident escalations. Oh, that really is a problem based upon malware or IP addresses or known indicators of compromise or whatever it is. And there's two key performance indicators, KPIs they're looking at. And the first one is this: I want to be able to help my SOC analysts reduce dwell times. Dwell times is, did it take an hour or did it take 6 hours to investigate and figure out what was going on, which then leads to increased analyst efficiency, more events closed per hour, or more events investigated per hour associated with that, right? And we all keep different tracking methods for our different SOC positions, right? But that's what Curator Advisor, right? It's designed to help give you back time, make your teams more efficient associated with that. So here's how it works, right? So first and foremost, Curator Advisor with Watson is an application available on IBM's Security App Exchange. So you download it, and then you get the first 30 days are at no charge, and then after that, they're going to charge you X amount on how many events per second EPS your Qradar environment is seeing, right? It's a monthly charge, so you can turn it on, turn it off, all you want associated with it. So here's what gets installed. So the Qradar Security Analytics platform sets up inside of your Qradar environment. We'll show how that works. And then the Curator Advisor performs local data mining, right? So it goes out there when an offense is created, it goes out there and does local data mining and learning about the observables and gathers that context, right? So it says, here's the person or the user or the machine or the asset or the IP address or the malware, the hashtag, whatever it is, right? It's going to gather up those observables and it's going to feed it up to Watson for Cybersecurity. So that's that Watson for Cybersecurity in the sky, which then takes those observables and does some very powerful cognitive analysis to leverage those. As a matter of fact, that known indicator of compromise malware file hash just got released this morning. We saw it for the first time this morning, and here's the update associated with it. Here's what it does. And not only is that machine that we were looking at had that downloaded, but here's the 6 other ones that have it as well, right? One of those things, right? And it feeds back those insights into the advisor, which is that actionable feedback and context to help make your analyst triage and the decisions faster, right? So this part of this stuff, right, being able to gather those observables, that was what was taking a long time for our analysts to be able to do, right? And then figuring out and reading the blog posts and you know, all that stuff that talks about it, being able to make those connections and then putting it back into some actual insights, that was taking our SOC analysts quite a bit of time to be able to do, right? So these are the components that make up Qradar with Watson. Down, there we go. So here it is. This is the if we're thinking about this thing, this Watson for cybersecurity, this thing that's that IBM owns, that's in this guy that you feed data to, and it then responds back on the advisor side. This is what it does in order to make that magic happen up there in the sky. So every 5 minutes, it receives structured security data, right? X-Force Exchange, which is IBM's threat intelligence feed, trusted partner data, open source, right? This is all about indicators of compromise, vulnerabilities, malware names, knowing bad actors, command and control servers, all of that stuff, right? Is input is every 5 minutes, right? Billions of data elements are in this piece associated with it, right? So it's pretty smart, right? It learns very quickly about all that stuff, right? Every hour, it crawls critical unstructured security data, blogs, website, news, right? So it goes out there and says, hey, so Frank Welder just published a new security blog talking about malware superstructure, right, that just got released 2 days ago, or we found 2 days ago, and here's his analysis of that. I'm going to keep that piece of information, right? I'm going to learn that piece of it as well, right? So it's going to know that. And then it's going to do a massive crawl of all security-related web and data, right? Breach replies, right? So, oh, hey, Frank Welder just did a breach reply, put it out on GitHub that this is how they responded back to that. So that's a good course of action associated with that, and indicators, right? So millions of documents. So that Watson in the sky is learning all this stuff. And I challenge myself, right? I have this little goal that says, hey, Frank Welder, read 5 blog posts about security every day, and then write one as a response every week, right? And I got Curator Advisor for Watson doing this stuff, you know, and I can't keep up, right? I can just be a contributor as part of that, right? So let's learn all of this stuff, right? And then it starts reducing that data into actionable insights. What happened? How is it tied? How does it apply to the observables that just got sent to me, right? So now when I take my piece and I send up my IP address, user, bad known actor, and I send this into Curator, and it goes down there and says, oh, well, this is what we think it means associated with that. All right, this is pretty cool when you think about. This is what we talk about for artificial intelligence. This is not machine learning. This is artificial intelligence. I'm putting stuff together, understanding natural language, taking unstructured and structured data, and making connections and recommendations associated with it. So this is how it puts it all together then, right? So it responds back and it says, hey, you know those observables you had, and these were your observables, Mr. Customer, right? Of the 65 observables here, they were file hashes and different things associated with that. I'm going to take those, and when I respond back, I'm going to have a confidence level for each progression that validates it. We believe this is a medium threat versus a high threat versus a critical threat associated with that. Then I'm going to help you visualize how the attack has progressed and it occurred, right? So this is how we found from this offense, Watson has analyzed 24 observables, a total of 335 data points, blah, 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 associated with this. And this is might be what happens, right? Uncover what tactic can still possibly occur. Because we just found this today, right, it's got a 36-hour incubation period before it launches this piece of the attack, right? So be on the lookout for these types of things, right? So that's what we mean, right? This is that response back that says, wow, this is what Watson has seen in your environment. Right, as well as then I can then map this out. So link the investigations through the observables. So these are all of my, you know what, here, I'm just going to forward on, right? There we go. So now let's do this. Let's go and take a look at Qradar. And now, so we were looking at user behavior before. Now let's take a look at the Watson environment, right? So Qradar has analyzed some of my high priority, and it automatically analyzes your high priority offenses. And then it will automatically investigate those high priority offenses as well. Because it's figured you're going to want to investigate them anyway. So let's get it out there, right? So now it's investigated my high priority offenses. So as SOC analyst, I'm going to come in and I'm going to click on my offense. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. It failed to load the investigation. I have borked up my my demo environment somehow, and as much as I wanted to show this to you live, it says it can't load the investigation. Oh, you rats and people here, dratted. Sorry about that.
But by the way, Frank, sorry to interrupt, but we do have an open question.
All right. Oh, what's the alarm symbol next to user Lily in Qradar? I love that. The alarm symbol next to Lily. Yeah, Lily, this is that user recently applied for a job with HP. So we can actually track different things, right? So we got different rules that we can have associated with this. And one of the rules was that Lily's browser behavior sent her to HP's website for careers. And as an IBM demo environment, right, we think that's funny, right? Well, we don't want that to happen, right? So they actually, it's an increased score associated with that as well. Because browser behavior is a piece of user behavior analytics as well. And so there's like 40 different categories underneath that. You know, while we're there, and since my Watson didn't work, I'm going to go over and click on the configuration for this. And you can do different things associated with this. So application settings, user import, trying to think of where is my rules for this. Oh, great. Hold on a second. Yeah, rules and tuning, here it is. Click the wrong button there. Well, thanks for asking that question. So one of the things I can do is browser behavior. And I've got 18 rules under browser behavior that I've got set up right now. And you can tune and modify these changes, right? So browse to a business, browse communication, education, entertainment, gambling, government, information technology website, job search website, there it is, right? Lifestyle, malicious, content, phishing, porn, religious, scam, right? So you can, these are the 18 rules we've got set up for browsing behavior associated with that. So that's how we caught Lily going out to HP's website and applying for a job. Lily, we're going to watch a little closer now. Because that, think about that, right? So Lily was browsing to somebody else's website. She might be exfiltrating customer data next. Not saying Lily would do that, but hey, right? It might be a thing. And thank you for reminding me to talk about that little part of that as well. I really appreciate that. All right, so since we can't, and that pains me to say, it won't load this, right? Because I did this right before we got online, and it loaded it. So I'm like, oh, curses, right? We're gonna have to go back to the website associated with this. And yes, I believe presentation will be available for everybody. All right, so let's do this. We're almost ready to land this bird, shall we say? All right, so this is just an example of how we're going to use Qradar, right? Tier 1 analysts can use this for, oh, let's find my laser pointer. You know, I love my laser pointer. Tier 1 analysts, first line triage, gather info, and escalate to Tier 2. Tier 2, in-depth investigations, instant response, right? And then I can then say, here's the recommendations, right? Deprioritize or escalate this and do something else associated with it, right? We just broke these out functionally. I know many of our customers, Tier 1 and Tier 2 is kind of the same guy, the same person in a lot of locations, right? So this is just an example of how it works. As I was going to be able to show you, right? Under Watson investigations, I was going to be able to filter this for serious or different things associated with that. And then I was going to be able to do an observable table, right? So here are all the observables we found and what Watson then recommends associated with that and does the visualization for that, being able to put all these things together. All right, and then next time we get together, right? So that's Frank's getting ready to land the bird right here, or land the plane. stock the ship. I forget which metaphor we should use associated with that, but here it is. Next time we're going to actually hopefully, we're going to start working on how we tie all this in with resilience, how you respond back to this incident, right? So now I've got this big thing that sees everything. I've got UVA and Watson helping me investigate and deep impact those things in my environment. Next thing is, okay, how do I remediate this? How do I fix something that's, when they downloaded ransomware, or they've got an escalation of privileges or something like that going on. So this is what we're going to talk about on our next call, which is, Ryan, when's our next call?
Our next call is March 26th.
Yep. Oh, you know what? I had it right here. Boom, right here.
Last Thursday of each month.
March 26th is we're going to talk about that particular piece of it, right? So continuing on about the fundamentals of security, right? How you find and stop advanced threats, how you hunt them and investigate and hunt them, and then how you remediate them. So, hey, Ryan, with that, I think we're done with the presentation piece, and we can open it up if we want to have people try and ask questions that way, but don't need to belabor it. We're kind of in good shape here.
Absolutely. And what we'll do is we'll leave the questions open, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Let's see, we actually have a few coming in already. Can Frank provide a couple of examples of network and endpoint data sources that we can feed into Qradar for UBA?
Oh, sure. I'd love to associate with that. Right. So my favorite ones are when I start taking a look at, I'm going to use endpoint data points first associated with that. So the easiest one that many of our customers have is Microsoft Active Directory, right? So if I'm going to use Microsoft Active Directory inside of my environment, I'm going to want to do a couple of things with it. I'm going to want to feed Active Directory's security log into Qradar, right? Because that tells me if I've got a single sign-on with Active Directory, I've got user login, log out, how many times they failed login, all that good stuff associated with that. Right, so boom, I'll use that as an event source every day, right? And I always ask people when we're doing deployments, hey, I want to make sure I've got this associated with this, right? So, and if you're not using Active Directory, maybe you're using Azure, or you're doing something out in something else, or you're using IBM's Security Connect, right? I'll take all of those to feed in associated with that, right? And then the one that we've got set up in the lab, that we just got set up in the lab at the Cyber Range, is we are taking both semantic and McAfee endpoint protection and feeding the event and log information from the McAfee central server into Qradar as well. So now I don't have to go look over at McAfee, and I don't have to go look over at semantic. I've got it coming into Qradar to be able to take a look at that. Right, so wow, right, now I've got some, think about just those two data sources associated with that, right, from an endpoint standpoint, right? So now I've got, right, and then we take the next piece, right, and that next piece is Cisco, whether I'm using Cisco ASA or I'm using regular route switch or something else associated with that. I'm going to take my Cisco event log as well as my Cisco JFlows. Yeah, Cisco uses JFlow, I think. I'm just going to use JFlows. I'm going to take my Cisco flow information under network activity, and I'm going to feed that in as well, right? Because Cisco network, if I'm gathering JFlow information from inside Cisco, I'm getting OSI a 7-layer stack associated with that, right? So I got user, I got application, I got IP address, MAC address, right? All that stuff coming in, and then I can make sense of that as part of this, right? And I said Cisco, right? But hey, if you're using semantic, checkpoint, gosh, what's that next generation one? Palo Alto, right? I love all of those, right? And this goes back to this discussion. I'll see if I can't find that slide real quick. All right, this goes back to this discussion about security being a team sport, right? I want to be able to have stuff from all of these folks fed into Qradar, right? So right now, I just talked about some of the route switch stuff associated with that. I could use RSA, I could use VPN pieces associated with it. I can get lots of stuff in that, right? And here's the thing: we always say, right, the more stuff you get in, right, the better visibility you have. The better visibility you have, the more correlations I can make, and then I'll apply that into UVA or just regular rules and things like that. Thanks. That was a great question.
Perfect. Thanks, Frank. No more questions have been coming in, but feel free to reach out to us. I encourage everyone to fill out the survey at the end of the session. Once you close the window, it'll pop up where you click to a cool little Google survey, and just to give us a little feedback on how you saw and how you liked everything that with the webinar, so we can improve even more on future series. And I also plan on reaching out later this week with the recordings and the slideshows. To also mention that we do have an X-Force Command Cyber Range coming up in Cambridge on April 23rd. And this is a great simulation that trains not only your security team, but business leaders, human resources, the legal team. And it really shows how your organization would react in a cyber attack situation in real time. It's a great team building simulation. And I also wanted to mention that FirstLight provides free security assessments, and these are non-intrusive general and vertical set of assessment services. They measure your security readiness against various types of security threats and compares you to other peers in your same vertical. You get a really great comprehensive report from that as well. But once again, I hope everybody enjoyed themselves today. I look forward to seeing you all on March 26th for the next episode. I hope everybody has a great day. Tomorrow's Friday, so I hope you have a great week, and I hope everybody takes care. I really appreciate it. Thank you.